What's up, storytellers? I'm C.R. Rowanson, the Magic Engineer, and it's time to talk about magic. In a previous video, we talked about magic system tropes. More specifically, we dug into what they are, when they're good, when they're bad, how you can use them, and most importantly, how to change them. This video is a continuation of that conversation as we dig into a very specific and very special magic system archetype: Necromancy. Oh yeah. So today, we're going to be getting right into the guts of this archetype, rooting around and seeing what we can do to stop beating this dead horse and resurrect it into something fresh and useful. We're going to be following my 3 steps that I always use if I want to change a trope. If you want to know more about those 3 steps, you should definitely check out that previous video that I mentioned, which I'll put a YouTube card for somewhere. I think here. Probably here. Step 1. Understand the trope. So what is necromancy? Well, it's in the name. Death, magic. If the magic doesn't pivot around, interact with, interfere, or function adjacent to death, it ain't necromancy. And most magic users, most users of necromancy, are often considered abhorrent and evil individuals that have little to no respect for the dead. And fortunately, in most settings with this trope, they are fairly uncommon both in society and in the world as a whole. One final thing about necromancy, another whole slew of tropes that come right along with it, are the undead. Usually controlling and raising zombies, skeletons, sometimes even controlling vampires and greater undead such as mummies or a lich or anything in that nature. All of that is kind of part and parcel in your standard necromancy magic system. Step 2, ask if you should change it. In some cases, you may not need to do anything. If you're running a standard D&D campaign or building a fairly tropish fantasy story, that's fine. Your standard form of necromancy works perfectly fine in that setting. Or if you just really enjoy telling stories about the struggle between life and death, that's also perfectly functional. Basically, if you like it the way it is, with all of the bells and whistles that come attached, then don't change it. Now, if you're looking to move outside a lot of the standard notions surrounding necromancy, then we really need to move on to step 3. Step 3, change it. There's a whole bunch of ways that we can change necromancy to make it new and interesting. One of the most obvious would be to change the global perception of necromancy. Because in its standard form, necromancy is considered, well, evil, unholy, and just plain gross. Which honestly gets said about a lot of my hobbies. Oh my god, what does that say about me? What we need to do here is find some ways that we can make necromancy more of a positive and good force in the world. So, for example, we could change it so that undeath is a natural part of the human life cycle. You're born, you die, and then you die again. In that case, necromancy is a specialized skill set used to help and interact with people in that very final stage of life, or unlife, or second life, whatever. They help people transition from life to undeath and from undeath into oblivion, and all of that stuff in between and that final stage is where they come in. They would effectively be doctors for the undead. If you want to do something more epic and action-packed, then maybe there is a massive threat that has risen in some part of the world, and now necromancers, specifically necromancers with their undead thralls, are the only line of defense that humanity has against these creatures. These could be some kind of threat that warps the mind or the spirit or the flesh, at which point undead really are the best option. And now they have gone from being these dregs of society that we would fear and hunt down to being our heroes that keep us safe with our families. That's a pretty big shift. If you're enjoying this video so far, please do take a moment to like and subscribe. It really does go a long, long way in appeasing the great gods of the algorithm, and I think we can agree we all want them to be happy. We can also change the prevalence of necromancers in our setting. This is digging into the idea that necromancers are rare and outcasts from the world and society. Now, this is often because either they have no interest in dealing with the living, or more frequently because they are hunted down and murdered the second their necromancy is discovered. You know, 6 of one, half dozen of another. Maybe the necromantic powers have become common enough that people in society can no longer comfortably kill anybody who is showing the power. In that case, having a necromancer in the family would be a deep secret and a dark shame that you would hide from the rest of the world. And if you were found out, well, you're not killed, you might be sent off into exile or shuffled off into camps out in the distance, or even into mining boom towns where they use your powers away from the good people of the world. We could even take that a step further. What if the number of necromancers was so great that they were actually able to connect and form an independent state or country? At that point, it really wouldn't matter what anybody else in the world felt about you, because you would have a secure place to go, that you would be accepted and integrated amongst other people like you. Both of these things would have huge ramifications in your world and your societies and any of the stories you want to tell. And that is why twisting these tropes and these archetypes is so freaking cool. We can also change the perspective of our story. I don't want to get too deep into this because this is a huge bathtub full of worms, and how you can do this and what this would mean. Suffice it to say, we normally see necromancy from the outside, from the POV of our heroes fighting against necromancers. We could easily change that so that the POV of our story is a necromancer themselves. At that point, that would change everything about how we interact and what we think, because necromancers may not be such bad people after all. I'd love to get into this more here, but there's so much we could talk about. Changing the POV to twist the magic system is something probably going to need a whole other video about. I do want to mention a very specific example of subverting the trope in this fashion, and that is Catharsis by Travis Bagwell. In this story, necromancy is everything that we would expect it to be. It is gross, twisted, and arguably evil, but the characters using it are not. The main character, Jason, has his issues, but he's just a normal person that is trying to get by, process his issues, and improve. And that's something that I really appreciated seeing, and this is just such an incredible subversion of the trope. You should really check it out. The death magic portion of this kind of system is pretty non-negotiable, but we can narrow it down. For example, what if instead of being able to raise a horde of undead, necromancers were only able to raise one body at a time? That would really change things and lead to some interesting situations. You might have somebody, a character, who actually just hauls around a cart full of bodies that have been prepared so he can rise the specific zombie he needs in any given situation. You might have somebody who goes in the complete opposite direction and just starts creating a patchwork abomination of undead flesh so that he has the biggest, baddest zombie to ever grace the face of the earth. Maybe necromancy in your setting doesn't have anything to do with humans or animals or even plants, but is all about bacteria. If you kill the bacteria in somebody's gut, you will watch as they slowly waste away and die from starvation, no matter how much food they're eating. On the other hand, you could cause an explosion of certain bacterial growth on their skin, which could cause minor cuts to become infected and necrotize and flesh to decay. And all of these things are part and parcel of the standard necromancy tropes, but now you're doing it in a new and previously unseen way. And that's just a few of the ways that we could change necromancy to turn it into something new and interesting. Bear in mind, these are all just my ideas. If you don't like them, not a problem. Go make some of your own. If you do like them, please feel free to use them. I would love to see where you put them into your stories or your games or your comics or anything. Just let me know. If you've seen a lot of my videos, you may have recognized some of the changes I was talking about came from the variables of my magic system blueprint. And if you're feeling ambitious, that could be a very interesting way to go about subverting archetypes of magic systems. Use the blueprint and map out an archetype, only focusing on the variables that are relevant. Not all of them will be relevant. Once you have it mapped out, you can just start moving some of the sliders and you're automatically subverting that magic system archetype. It's pretty cool. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about, I have several videos on the magic system blueprint that you can check out. Oh, and don't forget to go to TV Tropes. There are some excellent articles on necromancy and necromantic powers that you can look into. And that will actually lead you down a rabbit hole of all of these other related tropes and give you a better understanding of the archetypes and how it has been used across different medias. Now, all I want to know is how you would make necromancy fresh again. Also, if you have any magic system archetypes that you would like me to explore in this fashion, just leave a comment below and I'll add it into the queue and eventually add it into the series. But that is all for now, so please stay safe out there, and most importantly, keep writing and stay awesome.